Chapter 11. Previously, Elias has just turned a lethal sabotage attempt into a public triumph that exposed Silas Vane's corruption, but the victory is cut short by an ominous ultimatum from Arthur Vane. Now facing a direct threat of fabricated charges, Elias must decide whether to meet his enemy alone or risk destroying everything he has built. Now, Chapter 11 begins. The workshop's cooling fans usually provided a comforting white noise, the mechanical heartbeat of Aether Core. Today, that hum was drowned out by the rhythmic thumping of rotor blades and the shrill whine of news drones circling the perimeter like vultures sensing a fresh kill. Elias Thorne stood in the center of the main floor, hands raised slightly as 4 federal agents in matte black tactical gear breached the sliding doors. They didn't kick them open. The doors had unlocked remotely, a digital surrender that tasted like ash in Elias' mouth. Elias Thorne, the lead agent barked, his voice amplified by a throat mic. He held up a tablet displaying a glowing red seal. "We are executing a seizure warrant under Section 402 of the Federal Insurance Fraud Act. You are suspected of orchestrating a thermal event to destroy proprietary hardware for an illicit payout." "That's a lie," Maya Lin said, stepping forward from the server rack. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the edge of a console. "The thermal spike was an external attack. We have the logs." "Logs can be fabricated," the agent snapped, not even looking at her. 2 other agents moved to flank her, blocking access to the primary terminal. "Step away from the interface, Ms. Lin. You are barred from accessing any data storage devices pending investigation." Cold metal clicked around Elias' wrists before he could process the movement. The agent behind him was efficient, professional, and utterly devoid of empathy. This wasn't a raid born of suspicion. It was a surgical strike designed to freeze assets before Aether Core could react. Above them, 3 news drones dipped lower, their camera lenses glinting in the harsh workshop lights. The red live indicators blinked in unison, broadcasting the humiliation to millions. Elias knew exactly who was watching. Arthur Vane wasn't here in person. He was likely sipping espresso in a penthouse suite, viewing this feed on a secure wall screen, waiting for Elias to break. "You're making a mistake," Elias said, keeping his tone level despite the sting of the cuffs cutting into his skin. "You're seizing evidence based on a report generated by Vane Dynamics' own diagnostic tools. There's a conflict of interest here so blatant it's blinding." "The warrant is valid," the lead agent dismissed, turning to inspect the row of capacitors that had survived the recent explosion. "These units show signs of accelerated degradation consistent with intentional overload. We're taking everything. The cluster, the drives, the prototypes." Elias watched as the agents began unplugging cables. His eyes drifted to the scanning wands they used to catalog the equipment. Sleek, silver devices stamped with the Vane Dynamics logo, a stylized V inside a gear. As the lead agent swept a wand over a damaged GPU, the device chirped, sending a pulse of data upward. "Network handshake required," Elias realized, his mind racing faster than his heart. Those scanners don't store evidence locally. They validate thermal signatures in real time against Vane's private cloud to generate the legal chain of custody. The entire case hinged on that live connection. If the data stream was compromised, the warrant's foundation crumbled. "Kenji," Elias said softly, his voice barely audible over the drone rotors. Kenji Sato, standing silently near the back exit with his hands zip-tied, caught Elias' eye. The veteran DevOps lead gave an almost imperceptible nod. They had discussed this scenario during late-night strategy sessions. A dead man's switch for exactly this kind of corporate hit job. They wouldn't fight the seizure physically. They would facilitate it so completely that the act of taking the evidence would become the act of self-destruction for their accusers. While the lead agent argued with Elias about specific serial numbers, engaging him in a tedious bureaucratic dance, Maya made her move. She hadn't been fully stripped of her clearance yet. The agents assumed her biometric access was irrelevant since they were taking the hardware, not running it. "I need to authorize the transfer of the core logs to your secure container," Maya told the agent guarding her, her voice trembling just enough to sell the fear. "Your system won't accept the physical drive without a verified handover signature from the admin." The agent hesitated, then tapped his earpiece. "She says we need her biosign to lock the chain of custody, standard protocol for volatile data." "Do it quickly," the lead agent ordered, distracted by Elia's relentless questioning about Clause 14B of the Seizure Act. Maya stepped up to the biometric scanner mounted on the wall. She placed her palm on the glass. Instead of authorizing the transfer of the actual incriminating logs, the ones proving Vane's sabotage, she initiated a pre-written script Kenji had embedded in the workshop's local buffer. The screen flashed green. Authorization granted. Kenji, moving with a fluidity that belied his restraints, until the agent loosened them to let him carry a heavy server blade, swapped the drives. In one smooth motion, he slid the physical drive containing the true capacitor logs into his pocket and replaced it with a decoy. The decoy looked identical, labeled with the same serial numbers, but inside sat a recursive logic bomb disguised as a standard diagnostic utility. "Drive secured," the agent announced, plugging the decoy into his central tablet. "Uploading validation hash to Vane Cloud now." Elias stopped arguing. He watched the tablet's progress bar climb, 10%, 40%, 80%. As soon as the decoy drive connected to the agent's central server and established a handshake with Vane's private cloud, the logic bomb detonated. It didn't erase data. That would be too obvious, too easily explained away as corruption. Instead, it mirrored the encryption keys. It reached out through the open channel, grabbed the agent's own administrative credentials, and reflected them back into Aether Core's local buffer, creating a perfect, unauthorized bridge. The lead agent frowned at his tablet. "Connection unstable, getting a feedback loop." "That's odd," Elias said, his voice suddenly loud and clear, cutting through the tension. "Maybe you should check your source. Are you sure those scanners are calibrated correctly, or are they just repeating what they're told to say?" "Silence, suspect," the agent growled. "I demand a technical audit," Elias stated, shifting his posture. The humiliation vanished, replaced by a sharp, predatory focus. "Under the Tech Sector Emergency Preservation Act, I have the right to verify the integrity of seized hardware before it leaves the premises if there is a risk of data corruption. You just admitted your connection is unstable." "We don't have time for games," the agent scoffed, reaching for the door handle. "If you remove that hardware without a verified audit, the evidence is inadmissible in any federal court," Elias countered, citing the statute with precision. "And given the conflict of interest with the scanner manufacturer, a judge will throw this case out before lunch. Do you want to explain to your superiors why you botched a billion-dollar fraud case because you were in a rush?" The agent froze. The threat of procedural failure was often more terrifying to a bureaucrat than the threat of violence. He looked at his team, then back at Elias. "Fine, 5 minutes. Verify it, then we leave." He shoved the tablet toward Elias. "Plug in, show us the drive is intact." Elias took the tablet. His cuffed hands made it awkward, but he managed to slot a diagnostic cable from the wall into the device's port. The screen flickered. Because of the logic bomb, the tablet was no longer just talking to the decoy drive. It was now routed through Aether Core's local buffer, which held the mirrored keys to the Vane cloud. Elias didn't run a diagnostic. He opened the audio routing matrix. "Verifying," Elias murmured. Then he pressed a single key on the virtual keyboard. Suddenly, the workshop speakers, previously muted, erupted with sound. But it wasn't music or static. It was the live internal comms channel of the federal agents, broadcast directly to the news drones hovering outside. "Target is contained. Proceed with the narrative. Vane's office wants the press release drafted within the hour. Don't worry about the thermal reports, the founder signed off on the fabrication himself. Just get the drives and get out. The voice was unmistakable. It belonged to the lead agent, but the context was damning. And beneath his voice, another layer of audio played, the recorded order from Arthur Vane's chief of staff, confirming the raid was a corporate hit job, not a legal proceeding. The silence that followed in the workshop was absolute. Even the drones seemed to hover stiller. The lead agent paled, his hand flying to his earpiece to cut the feed, but it was too late. The audio was already streaming to every major news network, tagged with the location and the identities of the officers involved. "What did you do?" the agent whispered, horror dawning in his eyes. "I didn't do anything," Elias said, holding up the tablet so the cameras could see the screen. "I just verified the hardware. Apparently, your own system has a lot to say." Chaos erupted outside. Shouts from the press corps filtered through the open doors. The agents looked at each other, paralyzed. Their authority had evaporated in seconds. To continue the seizure now would be to admit to a conspiracy on live television. But Elias wasn't finished. He still had the mirrored keys. With a few rapid taps, he navigated the back door into Arthur Vane's personal financial ledger, accessible only because the agent's high-level clearance had been reflected back to him. He found it instantly. A transaction log dated yesterday, labeled Operation Clean Sweep, with a digital signature authorizing the fabrication of the insurance fraud report. Arthur Vane's signature. Elias tapped Publish. He attached the audio file, the signature, and a direct tag to the SEC and FBI whistleblower portals. "The untouchable founder just got touched," Elias said, handing the tablet back to the stunned agent. "I think you'll find your warrant is no longer valid. In fact, I'd suggest you consult your own lawyers immediately." The lead agent stared at the tablet, then at Elias. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the sheer terror of a man who realized he was now the primary suspect in a felony obstruction case. "Pull back," the agent choked out to his team. "Everyone pull back, leave the equipment." They retreated hastily, stumbling over their own feet, ignoring the shouted questions from the reporters surging toward the doorway. Within minutes, the workshop was empty of agents, leaving only the hum of the fans and the blinking lights of the news drones. Maya let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for an hour. "We did it. They're gone." "For now," Kenji added, rubbing his wrists where the zip ties had bitten in. "But Vane knows we have the keys now. He won't stop." Elias walked to the main monitor, where the viral dashboard was lighting up. The story was trending #1 globally. Aether Core exposes federal corruption. Vane Dynamics stock plummets. The narrative had flipped. They weren't fraudsters, they were whistleblowers. The junkyard cluster was no longer just a scrappy underdog project, it was a fortress of truth. On the large screen, the secure feed from Arthur Vane's remote location flickered. The old man appeared, sitting in a dark room, illuminated only by the glow of his monitors. He didn't look angry. He didn't look defeated. He was smiling. "Impressive, Elias," Arthur's voice came through the speakers, calm and chilling. "You turned my own trap against me. You proved you can break my locks. Most people would have crumbled." "Don't congratulate yourself," Elias warned. "You're finished, Arthur. The SEC will have your head by morning." "Perhaps," Arthur conceded, leaning forward. "But victory is a matter of perspective. You've cleared the board of pawns. Now it's just us." The feed cut to black. Before Elias could respond, a soft asterisk thud came from the front door. Everyone turned. Sliding under the sealed entrance was a single, unmarked envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, starkly out of place against the industrial concrete floor. Kenji moved to pick it up, but Elias waved him off. He walked over, crouched, and opened the envelope. Inside was not a letter of threat, nor a legal summons. It was a keycard. Black matte, with a single gold chip embedded in the corner. The insignia on the card was unfamiliar, a stylized orbit surrounding a server tower. Beneath the card, a handwritten note in elegant script read, You proved you can break my locks. Now prove you can handle what's behind them. This grants access to my private orbital server farm. Come alone. If you bring your team, or if you attempt to trace this card, I will release the unedited footage of Maya's compliance breach, the moment she authorized the transfer that nearly got you all arrested. The next move is yours, but choose wisely. Elias stared at the card, the weight of it heavy in his hand. They had won the battle, exposed the corruption, and saved the company. But Arthur Vane hadn't retreated, he had escalated. He was inviting Elias into the lion's den, dangling a carrot of ultimate truth while holding a gun to Maya's head. He wants me to come alone, Elias said, his voice low. That's a trap, Maya said immediately, stepping beside him. An orbital server, that's off-grid. No jurisdiction if you go there. If I don't, Elias interrupted, looking at her, he releases the footage. He twists the narrative again. He makes you look like the traitor who sold us out to save your own skin. We can fight it, Kenji argued. We have the public on our side. Not if he controls the edit, Elias said. He turned the keycard over in his fingers. The gold chip gleamed under the workshop lights. He's not trying to kill me anymore, Maya. He's trying to break us. He wants to see if I'll sacrifice my principles or my partner to get to the truth. Elias pocketed the keycard. The momentum of the victory had shifted instantly into a cold, personal dread. The public war was over. The private hunt had begun. Get the cluster back online, Elias ordered, his voice hardening. And scrub every trace of that logic bomb. If he's watching, I want him to see exactly what I want him to see. And you, Maya asked, her eyes searching his face. Elias looked toward the ceiling, past the roof, past the atmosphere, to the silent darkness where the orbital server waited. I'm going to prepare for a meeting, he said, alone. In the next chapter, as Elias steps away from the wreckage of Vane's empire, a new encrypted message arrives with coordinates that point to something far darker than corporate greed: the source code origin.